If I could have everyone's attention. Before we begin this afternoon, please everyone reach into your pockets or purses and take out your cell phones and put it on mute, please. Thank you. I promise you'll be allowed to turn it back on after this event. Welcome everyone to the annual Zlotowski event. It's my pleasure to welcome you. I'm Jeff Green. I've known the Zlotowskis these past 31 years, and it's a real pleasure to be able to welcome everyone here today. This event is held in honor of the Zlotowski family from Switzerland, the UK, and Israel, who have been staunch supporters of BGU from its earliest years. Over the decades, the Zlotowskis funded the construction of numerous vital dormitory, classroom, and research buildings, supported groundbreaking research, and provided for student welfare via the Zlotowski Student Center and Student Administration Buildings, the Student Association's dance troupe, and the Zlotowski Admission Award for Outstanding Students. This prestigious award is granted to the most outstanding incoming students at BGU and has proven to be an excellent investment, with many Zlotowski students going on to pursue graduate degrees at BGU. In the early years of the university, when BGU's future was unclear, Suzanne and Louis Zlotowski rose to the challenge to provide vital international support, serving as role models for other donors and friends. Suzanne was often referred to as the mother of all the students, or as Avishai Braverman would say, the mother of the students, in light of her deep concern for the welfare of BGU's students. They also served as role models for their daughter Adeline, who attended the Board of Governors meeting every year together with Susie and with her beloved son, Louis James, who we have with us here tonight. And also with her dear Remy Barabi, also with us. They delighted in meeting with the students and personally connecting with them. Adeline made Aliyah to Israel in 2011 and enjoyed her life in Tel Aviv before tragically passing away last year at far too young an age. May her memory be for a blessing. And now Louis, who first came to BGU as a young boy at Adeline's side, has taken up the Zlotowski family mantle as a key member of the Ben-Gurion University Foundation Board in London. The Zlotowski family name is deeply ingrained in the history of BGU, and it is our deep honor to perpetuate their legacy with this annual event. And now, on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, BGU Radio is now on air.
We, the international students, welcome you.
The 53rd Board of Governors to the annual Zlotowski event, BGU Radio Live. Be the solution.
Welcome.
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 Please welcome your hosts, Dr. Buzi Raviv, the Director of BGU Radio, and Professor Simon Barak from the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research.
You're listening to BGU Radio.
Hey, Buzi, how are you?
I'm so excited. How are you, Simon?
Me too. I'm so excited. And hello to our fabulous audience here in the WA Minkov Senate Hall.
Whoa. You know, Simon, we are BGU Radio, and we share the best stories from the Negev to the universe. And boy, we have some great stories to tell you today.
Yes, we do. We have an amazing story about cyber criminals and the intrepid detective who is trying to keep us safe.
We also have a super unusual collaboration that could literally save lives.
And we're going to hear about how the very environment that nurtures us can give us the power to be the solution.
And how to get the power of the unicorn.
Noah Kirill! So, Buzi, tell me, are we going to tell all these stories?
No, of course not. Someone else will. Can you guess who?
But Buzi, we actually don't need anybody. We are now in the era of artificial intelligence, AI. we could actually get ChatGPT to tell all the stories.
We could, you're close, but in fact, the stories are going to be told by our brilliant young BGU researchers that are here with us, and they are harnessing AI for good causes and also protecting us from the bad things that AI could do. And not only that, Simon, we're going to hear about a question that is on all of our minds at the moment.
What's that, if the air conditioning is still working?
No, something much, much more terrifying. Whether humans are still needed in the AI era.
Wow.
But first, let's tell a story about the power of AI and how it can be a solution.
Well, in that case, for our first session, I would like to call into our studio Dr. Talia Meital Schwartz-Tayri from the Charlotte and Jack Spitzer Department of Social Work. Let's give her a hand.
Wow. Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
Talia.
you.
Hi. It's so good to have you with us.
Happy to be here.
Great. Talia, as a social work researcher, you're trying to prevent a heart-wrenching and a serious challenge. Can you tell us a bit about the problem that you are dealing with?
Well, we're trying to prevent child abuse.
Oh.
You know, one of the biggest problems is children coming to the pediatrics ER with injuries. And sometimes only at the 7th or 8th time that they are coming, the staff, the medical staff, finally identifies that this child has been been suffering from abuse. And we know that from the reports and from the stories of our colleagues from Soroka Medical Center and also the National Forensic Clinic. And why it is so hard to detect? It's so hard to detect because the child is traumatized. The child is suffering from severe pain. So he cannot tell you what caused the injury. So the medical staff have to rely on what the caregiver says. And in cases of child abuse, the caregiver is most probably the perpetrator.
Yes, I know it's a very difficult topic to talk about, but I'd like to ask you, what type of injuries are you looking at when you try to analyze this?
Well, we started with burns.
Why burns?
Well, wow. Unfortunately, burns are one of the most common ways to abuse a child. So we want to use AI to analyze burn photos, child burn photos, to reveal the visual patterns of burns and to diagnose some of the visual patterns are non-visible, are invisible to the human eye, to diagnose whether a burn is intentional or not.
So you plan to use AI for that analysis. And you know, Talia, at BGU, we have a special ecosystem that often leads to unusual collaborations between researchers from two fields that you wouldn't think they could meet.
Right.
Who did you turn to help you realize this idea of using AI for that?
Well, I wanted to give the medical staff a practical tool. So I looked for an AI expert with a good heart.
And we have him right here. So please give a hand to Dr. Dan Vilenchik from the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Dan, come on down. Hey, Dan. How are you?
Good.
Great.
Just this compliment was worthwhile coming here.
It's great to have you with us. So Dan, as a computer scientist, what did you think when Talia proposed a collaboration between social work and AI?
I agree that at first it may sound weird, this collaboration, but actually the colleague that introduced us from social work, we were working for a while together on another application using voice to detect depression.
That's good for the radio.
Yeah. So the idea of AI for social good was not strange to me. And so immediately I agreed to meet Talia, and after we complained about hard life in academia, we went down to business. So here we are.
So how does this actually work? I mean, you're using artificial intelligence, AI, to try and differentiate between burn images that are due to abuse or not due to abuse. So how do you actually get the AI to do that?
I'll start by just maybe really briefly saying how does AI learn. And it learns quite similar to how, let's say, little children or even us learn. It learns from examples. So imagine a child going straight to a cup of boiling water, and then the mother screams, "No, get away!" And then he updates, he learns a rule, not to touch hot water. And so the same with AI, we show him pictures, images of burn, and instead of screaming, we use a mathematical framework to update the rule so that it learns according to the labels, according to how the images were classified.
And how do you actually get hold of the data? How do you get hold of these burn images?
So we have, as Talia mentioned, we have a fantastic collaborations with doctors from Soroka, and we're going to build an app that will allow them to take pictures and to classify the pictures for us. And also using consensus among a lot of experts, we're going to get labeled data to train the AI. So it's a human-AI interaction.
So that's a really interesting point. So you have experts actually classifying the burn images, whether they're from abuse or not, so you can train the AI. And I'm really interested in this human-AI interaction. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so actually what we're going to do, at first we let humans train the AI, giving those examples. But then when the AI is trained, we're going to go back and have the AI train the doctors by, for example, if it predicted a certain image as being intentional burn, the AI can also show on the image where exactly on the image, what information it used to predict. And so the doctors can get a feedback, maybe some insights that are hidden, because fortunately they don't see thousands of burn images, but the AI seeing this global view can help them get new insights. And so we have this AI-HI interaction, which is productive.
Which is actually living in a sci-fi movie. Talia, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the app. If you can tell us about the process, what happens to a child that is coming into the hospital until the final outcome?
Well, we're going to use the app in all physical examinations conducted with children coming to the ER with burns. And the app is going to be installed in all the medical staff mobile phones and in the ER iPad, so they can easily and quickly take a photo of the burn, and just within minutes or maybe
milliseconds, yeah.
Maybe
it's
milliseconds.
2023, it's milliseconds.
Yes, they will get an indication to whether the burn is intentional and at what level of probability. And when the report of the caregiver and the app result will not match, then they'll know that they have to refer the child and the caregiver for further investigation.
And I guess it's only one tool in the toolbox for the medical staff that you're developing.
A very important tool, critical tool.
You're actually saving children's lives.
Yes, because we use responsible AI. We train AI using human experts. We take into account both the caregiver report and the AI result. And, we're trying to do tikkun olam. The app will help us to get and to identify abuse as early as possible. And, this early identification will help us not only save the child from multiple traumas, and also save the other children in the family and provide the family with a proper therapy to help them to change their trajectory.
כל המציל נפש אחת, כאילו הציל עולם ומלואו.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you, Talia and Dan, for this amazing story about collaboration, out-of-the-box collaboration, and for showing us the power of AI for good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But Simon, I'm still worried. I'm still worried that AI will become so powerful it could take my job.
Well, that would be disastrous, because then there would be no BGU radio, because if it took your job.
Oh my God.
And that is why, in our next session, we're going to delve into the real and present dangers of AI and hear from a BGU researcher who is devising ways to protect us. But all that after these short messages from our BGU radio students.
Radio, the best radio in the university, broadcasting to the universe.
Hello, and welcome to Yazamut 360 Entrepreneurship Center.
Oh,
we are proud to present you with our latest project, Extreme Resume Makeover. Our first contender used to cut hair, but now I'm proud to present you with our very own hair architect. Isn't he gorgeous? Our second contender used to be a pizza delivery boy, but now I am proud to present you with our very own marketing and distributing manager for a local culinary chain. And now, for our final and last contender. She used to be just a simple astronaut, but now I present you with a space entrepreneur.
If you're interested about learning more how it's like to be a space entrepreneur, you're in luck. Join my lecture this Wednesday, 10 a.m.
Wait. I'm a philosophy student. Can you help me too?
We're closed.
What will I do now? I want to do something great. I know, I want to light a torch like Sylvan Adams.
Hi, I'm on a quest to find Sylvan Adams.
This is the Sylvan Adams Sports Center. Do you have your card?
BGU Radio, where creativity meets academia.
And we're back on the show. Many thanks to our wonderful students from BGU Radio for those important messages. And now, as promised, the dark side of AI.
So please, come into the studio. That guardian of the galaxy, that Sherlock Holmes of cyberspace. Please welcome Dr. Yisroel Mirsky of the Department of Software and Information Systems Engineering and a Zuckerman Faculty Scholar. Let's give him a hand. So, Yisroel, it's great to have you in. Thanks for joining us. So, Yisroel, I want to actually go back to our prep meeting that we had, because you told me something really interesting there. You're now a member of BGU academic faculty, but in your student days, you applied to lots of universities to try and get into graduate studies, and you were accepted in quite a lot of them. Why did you choose BGU?
That's a good question. So, yeah, I was accepted to Technion, a few other universities, and what I really wanted to do was I wanted to get into research of cybersecurity. And what I found out after doing some digging around was that BGU was the center, or I should say Beersheba was becoming the center of cybersecurity for Israel. So I decided that I should definitely do my research there. And after digging around a bit more, I also found out that this is the perfect place because there's a trifecta of cooperation here, right here in this corner, between academia, industry, and government. And as an AI researcher, this is very important because you can have amazing ideas, but without any data or any applied problems to work with, you're kind of stuck. So these cooperations are really helpful in making sure that we can take this research to the next level.
Yeah, and you're working on many stuff, but we want to concentrate on one terrifying topic that you're dealing with, which is deepfake. Can you tell us what is deepfake?
Right, so I have a research lab called the Offensive AI Research Lab, where we look into all kinds of different ways where attackers can use AI offensively for malicious purposes, or how attackers can abuse AI or attack the AI itself. And one of those ways is to use something called a deepfake. I think the best way to describe what a deepfake is to give a demonstration. So I have had my students create this demo, and let's play it so we can hear it. Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is President Danny Chamovitz. The food at the Board of Governors has been so good that I would like to request you don't eat it all. I'd like to take some home, okay?
So the first thing I have to do is I have to turn to the president and I have to say, Danny, did we ever record you saying that you want to take all the food of the Board of Governors home? And do you want to take all the food of the Board of Governors home? Yeah. So Yisroel, how did you get the president to say all that?
So we use something called deep learning and a special pipeline to create this kind of voice cloning technology. And all it takes is about 10 to 15 minutes of the victim's voice, where we can scrape from YouTube videos, and we can create a model where you just have to speak into the microphone, and in real time, the other person's voice will come out on the other side.
Simon, I quit.
And you know, what's amazing is that this technology is getting better and better. So now we can do it in real time, and what takes it to the next level is, you know, what we can do, in terms of quality, where it can go from there. But you know, this might be cool, but it's also kind of scary, and we have to consider what adversaries and attackers can do with this technology. So, for example, imagine a technician at a power plant, and a technician gets a call from his supervisor, and the supervisor is very stressed, and he says, "You have to right now change the setting on valve number 7, or give me some confidential, private information." Many times people will, in this scenario, probably confuse familiarity with authenticity, and they would,
But that's theoretical. Do you have some real life story that happened?
Yeah, so I mean, this has been going on actually for quite some time. So one of the first cases was 2019. There were some members of parliament in the EU who joined a Zoom meeting, and they carried through the entire meeting, and only after the meeting had concluded, they realized that one of the members that participated in the meeting was never actually there. It was just a deep fake of somebody.
Crazy.
And then again in 2020, there was another case, a huge bank heist. Cyber criminals had called up a bank using the voice of some CEO and convinced an accountant there to transfer $35 million.
$35 million?
Yep, and the list goes on and on and on until today. Is that part of our campaign? Speak to me after this, yeah.
So how are you... So, Yisroel, how are you trying to combat deepfake?
So, all the existing technologies for combating deepfakes are passive. What does that mean? If there's somebody, calls you up using a deepfake voice, or there's some media post online that's fake, what the technology does is it tries to look for artifacts, defects in the images or in the audio to say that this is not real. But this is a losing game, in my opinion, because the technology is just getting better and better as time goes on. So what we're doing in our lab is instead of using passive techniques, we're trying to look towards active techniques towards defense. So, for example, there are specific limitations that AI can't handle, at least today, where we can exploit those limitations. And what we do is we use something kind of like a CAPTCHA. Do you know what a CAPTCHA is?
So it's like those words that you have to put in before an account. It asks you to type in a particular word, or I'm not a robot, or something like that?
Right, so when you're online and you're trying to make a new count, there's some squiggly letters you have to figure out, right? So the whole purpose of those CAPTCHAs are to try and distinguish who is a human and who is an AI bot, right? And that test is really to say that, or the idea of that test is that it's very easy for a human, easy, I'm doing air quotes here, nobody can see, very easy for a human to determine what's written there, but very hard for an AI. So it's a test on the AI's ability to interpret content. What we're trying to do is to generate a test on how well AI can create content, right? So the idea is, for example, that technician gets a call, and the technician, hears from his administrator, says you have to do something that could be very dangerous. So the technician could say, for example, this is, according to policy, you have to verify you according to this process using our CAPTCHA system. So the call will be diverted to another channel. And there'd be a completely an automated system where basically the automated system would ask the caller to perform some challenge, which is easy for a human to do. For example, a pull on your shirt. If it's an audio call, clap while you're talking. And what happens is if the attacker is using a deepfake model, as that input goes through the model will break down because it can't handle all these different kinds of situations, and that will create all kinds of errors and defects that'll be easier for us to detect.
So that really makes me think of a question which is really worrying for me and probably for everybody sitting here, and that is how long until AI can actually overcome these limits? How long until AI can hum a tune or it can clap while it's speaking?
Yeah, it's very smart.
Right, so it's a very good question. AI is always progressing very rapidly. Every day it gets better and better. In my opinion, it could be anywhere between 5 and 10 years before it can overcome most of these challenges. Not all of them. It really depends on the use case. But what we try to do is we try to make sure that we make the technology, or we try to think about the next step and try to always keep ahead of the attacker.
So it's really like an arms race.
Yes, absolutely. So, my background is cybersecurity. I did a lot of cybersecurity for over 7 years in using AI for defense and now trying to understand attacks on AI. And what you see a lot in cybersecurity is this kind of cat and mouse game. But what's critical is that we don't end up in a reactive arms race. Right? A reactive arms race means that basically the attacker did something, they found some hole in some software, there's a big breach, and we scramble to try and solve the problem. What we have to do is we have to be proactive. We have to be in a proactive arms race. And that's exactly what we do in our lab. We try to think about what the attacker is going to do next, maybe even before they do it, and right away come up with the defenses and come up with the solutions.
Wow, it's amazing, it's terrifying, and Yisroel, thank you so much for coming on BGU Radio as your real self and not some deep fake hologram, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we've just heard how AI is becoming part of our everyday reality. But in our final session, we're going to hear about what humans have that machines don't.
At least not yet.
But all that after this short commercial break.
Hello, this is Danny Chamovitz, president of BGU. I'm hereby inviting you to the hottest event in the history of the university ever.
A negative experience. True 4x4 action. Experience the desert like never before. Come drive a Jeep with your favorite researchers in the scorching desert sun.
Approved by Professor Chamovitz, the president of BGU, who also happens to be me. Call now to ensure your spot of fun in the sun.
So first of all, everybody, I just want to calm you down a bit.
BGU Radio, where creativity meets academia.
So I just want to calm everybody down about the trip tomorrow. It's all going to be fine. And by the way, Buzi, that was also a deep fake version of the president. So how terrifying is that?
Very terrifying. Even though after Yisroel, I feel a bit more safe. Okay, well, we have heard in our previous 2 sessions about artificial intelligence, and I wonder what the human elements are that AI doesn't have. So I suppose that to do that, we really need to talk to someone who understands human behavior.
Indeed we do, and so it is our great pleasure to invite into the studio a young researcher and award-winning lecturer who tries to understand the human elements of culture that make Israel an innovation hub, the startup nation. Please give it up for Dr. Dorit Efrat-Treister from the Department of Manager. Yes.
Hi, Dorit, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Great. Frightened, terrified, a lot of things happening here. Okay, so Dorit, you're a cultural psychologist dealing with how culture shapes our psychology. So how did you get to that topic?
Well, I grew up in Israel to an American mother and an Israeli dad. This means that everything I grew into had different cultural views. For example, let's say you go out for hummus. So my dad would sit there and say, oh, it's so nice. There's one plate in the center, and we all eat together. We're one for all for one. No one will be hungry. My mom would say, what's all this double dipping? What about hygiene? Why can't I get my own plate? I'm an individual. Then I traveled to Spain, I traveled to Canada, and I saw that no matter where I am in the world, I can see the reality from many different views. And that's how I became a cultural psychologist.
So I can really relate to this because my wife is actually here in the hall. She is from Tunisian descent, so I can really relate to what you're saying. But this obviously gave you real insight into the influence of different cultures. And I'd really like to know, how did you take this into your research interests?
one of the questions I explored was why Israel is a startup nation. And in exploring this, I examined the culture here. So what about the Israeli culture creates an ecosystem that can encourage startups? You see, this country has wars, it has difficult economical problems, it has threats, it has politics. Doesn't really make sense that we will be the startup nation of the world. So that's what I set up to explore. When exploring that, I looked at the cultural spice we have here, or the specific cultural combination. I surveyed 6 CEOs of large companies that had all exited. You know these companies, though I can't say their name. I surveyed 50 junior managers, and I compared the cultural values of Israel with 62 nations worldwide. And what I found out is that we have a unique cultural spice, or a unique cultural combination that does not exist anywhere else in the world.
And what did you find? What are the specific Israeli characteristics that make us a great innovation ecosystem?
So first, we're the only country worldwide that is high on both individualism, that's my mother's side, right? The individual dish, collectivism. So that's the caring for the collective. Any other country in the world is either more individualistic or collectivistic or average. What does this create? It creates a society that on the one hand strives for competitiveness, achievement, that's the individualistic value. On the other hand, we are very collectivistic, which means that our childhood friends stay with us our whole life. When we meet someone new, we say, well, where do I know you from? Maybe the military, maybe the scouts, maybe from here, maybe from there. And that network enables us to work with many people and strive for achievement and be high achievers.
So we have this mixture of spices, and we have these long-lasting networks, the achievement orientation. And what other traits do you find?
Israel is one of the countries with the lowest hierarchy orientation.
Lowest hierarchy? That reminds me of a story that Simon told me once. Remember the story?
You mean the one about Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir?
Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir.
Oh,
wow. So before I made Aliyah, I was working in the Jewish agency. And we used to put on an event where the Prime Minister would send a greeting fax. And 2 days before, he hadn't sent it. So my boss asked me to call the Israeli Prime Minister's office and ask the Prime Minister to send a fax. Now, I've been living in Britain. You don't ask the British Prime Minister's office to get the Prime Minister to send you a fax. So I said, okay. So I called the Prime Minister's office, and this person answered, and I asked if the Prime Minister could send a fax. He says, I'm really sorry, the Prime Minister's gone home. So first of all, I was blown away. He would even tell me where the Prime Minister had gone. And I said, well, okay, I'll call tomorrow. He says, no, it's okay, I'll give you his home phone number. I'm like, what? So he gave me his home phone number. I called it up, and a woman answered, and in my naivety, I said, is that the Prime Minister's secretary? She said, no, it's his wife, Shulamit. What can I do for you? I'm like, can you ask the Prime Minister for a fax? So this is like crazy. This was hierarchy, anti-hierarchy, an absolute, complete extreme.
That's a great example. So how does the lack of hierarchy help innovation in Israel?
Well, Israel is very horizontal. That means that there's very low power distance between different levels in the hierarchy. For example, when I just arrived here, Professor Chaim Hames invited us for breakfast in his office. And we had an informal chat where I learned that you were the head of the Scouts troops in Beersheba. And these kind of things make people close. This means that when I look at my students, I don't see myself as above them. I see myself as equal to them, just in a different stage in life. This encourages chutzpah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means that if a CEO has an idea, we can question it. We can twist it around. We can talk and have a different idea. And that encourages creativity, because it's not one person thinking, it's a group of people thinking and thinking together. And whether you're the most junior person or the most senior person, you can talk together, and there are many, many more ideas.
You know, I think it will take time for AI to develop chutzpah.
Maybe not, I don't know. I'd like to actually go back to our prep meeting, Dorit, because you mentioned something there. You said that something called that Israelis have a high ambiguity tolerance, or as you really, really nicely put it, Israelis are fine with living with balagan, with chaos. What did you mean by that, and how does that help us being a startup nation?
Look at our lives. Last week, we had a war. This week, we have a strike. Okay? We live in Balagan. That means that we have to tolerate risks. We have to tolerate uncertainty. When you grow into this environment, you learn to live with uncertainty and actually appreciate it. You learn to be a risk taker, not to be afraid of risks. If I want a startup, to invest in a startup, I need to take into account that it's a risk, that 1 out of 10 startups will make it. I need to be able to live with the uncertainty. So our life is a balagan, my room is a balagan, my kids are a balagan, our life is a balagan, but there's something really good about it. Because we learn to live with this, we learn to take the risk, and that's how we strive.
No, it's totally connected to... Yeah.
So maybe
it's really connected to what Yisroel said about the inputting of error into the AI.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about asking my son to stop tidying up his balagan in his room, yeah.
Okay, so Dorit, from all this research and the Israeli cultural traits, maybe you have any recommendations about how to develop a culture of innovation and creativity, something practical?
Well, what I explained here is a unique cultural combination of high individualism and collectivism, low hierarchy, and high tolerance for balagan. But most places in the world don't have this combination. However, we can combine people. So, for example, if you're from Singapore, you can collaborate with Israelis. If you're in the Silicon Valley, you can take into your startup people from India, people from Saudi Arabia, people that are from England. You can create this cultural mix, even if you're in a society that's more homogeneous.
Wow.
We here are a melting pot, and this is how this was created, through history.
So do you think that we have these traits here at BGU?
Of course. Look around. Go on the campus. You will see people from all different religions. You will see Arabs and Jews, ultra-Orthodox and secular. You will see people from many different cultures. We have Ashkenazi, we have Sephardi, we have a cultural blend, and that's what creates this unique combination.
Amazing. So before we say goodbye, Dorit, I have to ask you, what do you think is the take-home message from all these 3 sessions?
When I think about all these sessions, I think that while we should, of course, invest in AI, we should also invest in the human element and not forget that it's the combination that makes a success. Thank you.
Well, on that optimistic note, we'd like to thank you, Dorit, for telling us about your fascinating insights into what makes us the startup nation and what makes BGU the place to be for innovation. A short commercial break, and we'll be back with a few words to sum up.
BGU Radio, where creativity meets academia.
So, Simon, just before we wrap up, we've heard today about the amazing ecosystem we have here at BGU that really facilitates human creativity.
We did, and you and I were looking for a really good example from the student campus experience that epitomizes this creative ecosystem.
And we found one?
We found it right under our noses.
Really?
At BGU Radio.
Oh, what example?
The message.
Which message?
Buzi, the birthday message.
Ah, the birthday message. That's right. It's a good example. Okay, so, you know, Simon, we host loads of student volunteers who spend days and nights in our studios, sometimes after long days of study. So, I'm about to read you the birthday message that one of them sent me last week. And I think it explains a lot about the essence of the BGU ecosystem. And by the way, I translate it from Hebrew to English using AI.
Of course. Wow. Can't wait to hear the message.
Okay, so here it is. Buzi, I want to wish you the best of luck and tell you that socially, I didn't find my place at the university in the first year. And this year, after joining BGU Radio, I really feel at home and at the university. And now, I stay on Saturdays in Be'er Sheva, and I enjoy it here a lot, thanks to you. BGU Radio gave me a different picture of how I can see the university and the lecturers in it. I appreciate the safe space you gave me, both for creating and for the company. Red Heart. Thank you.
And this atmosphere of inclusivity and creativity, that is BGU.
And with that, Simon, I think it is time to thank everyone who was involved in this show.
So firstly, let's thank our fantastic researchers, Talia, Meital, Schwartz-Tayri, Dan Vilenchik, Yisroel Mirsky, and Dorit Efrat-Treister.
And we want to thank our amazing BGU Radio students who work so hard to produce these great commercials. Yael Goldfinger, Boaz Yukelson, Lior Berman, Shai Eshet-Bachar, and Daniel Guy Tzabari Dagatz.
And finally, our fantastic BGU public relations and media staff, Hadas Moshe,
Osnate,
Liora Menachem,
Karen Ben-Abu,
Elio Damol,
Linda Lovich,
and last but not least, Jeff Kay, Vice President for Public Affairs and Resource Development.
Simon, you were all right.
And you were okay too, Buzi.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to you, our wonderful audience. Thank you.
BGU Radio.